I've been an artist for over 12 years and I've been teaching beginner artists for over 6 years. And in that time, I've learned a lot of lessons from great artists. So here are 7 lessons from master artists. Lesson number 1 comes from Dave Raposa, and that lesson is to do what it takes. Sometimes you have to ask yourself what you are willing to sacrifice to actually do your art practice. How much are you willing to sacrifice to make the time so you actually have the space to explore your creativity? Dave is famous for moving into cheaper places, moving away from his home to pursue his art career. Now that's an extreme example, and he's done a lot of extreme things to make himself successful. You don't have to take it to that extreme. Obviously, if you're doing it for a career, that's a little bit different. Most of you are probably hobbyists, but the question you should ask yourself is, what am I willing to sacrifice in terms of my hobbies, in terms of my free time, to make time for my creativity? Because the time has to come from somewhere. The energy has to come from somewhere. So what are you willing to change in terms of your lifestyle to actually make that room? Because your creativity, your creative voice deserves its space, and you need to find that space somewhere. So ask yourself right now, what am I willing to sacrifice to make more space? And one of the questions I had to grapple with more recently is, how much content am I willing to consume in trade-off for drawing, right? I have a problem where I consume way too much YouTube, I consume way too much TV, and I need to ask myself, is this more important than drawing? How much of this actually makes sense, right? And you obviously need time to rest. You need time to spend with family. I'm not saying that you should sacrifice all your friendships and never watch a movie and only draw. That is not what I'm suggesting. Rest time and breaks is perfectly healthy. Do them, take breaks. But you also have to be realistic about how much time you have throughout the week. Where do you have gaps where you could do more drawing? For me, I realized that I was consuming more and more content over time, and the amount of drawing I was doing is just declining. It was just decreasing over time just because I was consuming more. And most of the consumption that I was doing wasn't even that fulfilling. I was just wasting my time. I was just being distracted. It's because I was grappling with my creative voice, and that made it hard to sit down and draw. Therefore, as a distraction, I was consuming way more content than I needed to be consuming. And it wasn't even art-related content. It was just garbage distractions that wasn't helping me, right? Educational content is a little bit different. I do enjoy consuming educational content because it becomes inspirational. But when there's just media that distracts me and it's just like drama filled, there's so many like art drama channels where most of the videos they make is just about art drama instead of actual drawing. And those videos get way more views than the educational stuff, which I think is really funny. But it's very easy to get distracted by that stuff. Obviously, that stuff is enticing and it's fun once in a while. But you have to ask yourself, what am I willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to sacrifice the time that you spend on TikTok or Instagram to draw more? Ask yourself that, and you have to be honest with yourself. Maybe you're not willing to sacrifice all of it, but maybe you're willing to sacrifice half of it, 20% of it, 10% of it, and that small difference over time will compound, right? So if you draw 20 minutes more every week for like the next couple of years, that 20 minutes really does add up, and it will help you improve and fall deeper in love with your creativity. And one way that you can increase the amount of time that you draw and increase the amount of sacrifice you're willing to make is by falling in love with art practice, right? So Dave Raposa is famous for like doing like these extreme things where he's really pushing himself because he wanted that career. And that's one version of it. I think there's a different version for like most hobbyists where you just try to increase the amount of love that you get from your drawings, the amount of joy you get from your practice, so that it becomes easier to trade it off, right? So imagine that you enjoyed drawing more than you enjoyed watching TV, then you would just lean towards drawing anyways. Now that is not an easy thing to do. And that is something that you have to explore. It's something I talk a lot about in my 4-hour artist course, or whatever it's named now. Like my creativity courses, like all of those courses really focus in on this, like increasing the amount of joy, because I do think it's one of the most effective ways to increase the amount of drawings that you do. So that is something that I've been focused on the past couple of weeks, just trying to hone in on what do I love about drawing? How do I feel more joy? How do I set it up so that drawing becomes easier and more fun, so I'm not as tempted to lean into distractions? So that's lesson number 1. What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to do? Are you someone who is trying to make this a career? And then the question becomes, what kind of lifestyle changes are you willing to make that happen? Are you willing to move into a cheaper place so that you have more money and more savings to take a break away from your job to like really pursue it? Like, what are you willing to do? And that's not an easy question to answer, and you really have to explore it over and over again because your answer might change. But ask yourself right now, what am I willing to sacrifice to draw more? Lesson number 2 comes from James Jean, the absolute goat. And the lesson that I took away from him is that you have to be willing to switch gears sometimes. Sometimes you go down one path and then realize that that path isn't for you, and then you turn around. So if you don't know this, James Jean for a 4 or 5 year period really did these large expressive paintings because he was exploring this new style. After 4 to 5 years of like building out this body of work, realized that the illustrative style that he has now was more palatable and it was more popular. So he switched styles because he realized that, wait, this resonates more with my audience. I should actually be focusing on this style. Now imagine spending 4 to 5 years building up a body of work that is focused on one style and then leaving that behind. Making that kind of sacrifice can be very painful and very difficult to do, but that willingness to experiment and then switch gears is such a healthy way to like find who you truly are. Because let's say you are willing to make that kind of investment before you change gears, it makes it so much easier for you to explore many different things and not take it so personally. This is something that I've struggled with a lot, where through my 20s, I did so many different projects, and every time I switched gears, it was so painful emotionally. It was so difficult emotionally, where I would just not draw for like 2 weeks because it was too heavy for me, because I was judging myself. I was way too harsh with myself, when it was the reality was just that this experiment didn't work. Now let me just switch to a different experiment. That's the main lesson. Just switch gears. It's part of the art journey. This idea that you're going to build a perfect roadmap and then just follow it is so unrealistic. What's going to happen is that you're going to do a bunch of mini projects. Each project is going to teach you about yourself. It's going to help you explore a part of yourself, and then you're going to make decisions over and over again about the path. So you're not going to find like a linear path through. What you're going to do is you're going to weave through a bunch of different projects, and eventually you'll end up somewhere that you will enjoy. But this weaving, this doing these projects will be tons of fun, as long as you don't take it so personally when you switch gears. And that is kind of the lesson that I had to take away. I realized that, well, this amazing artist spent all this time and energy on this type of work, then switched gears and was able to do that even though he had spent this amount of time on it. And that is so inspiring, because it's like, well, if he was willing to spend 4 years, what does it mean if I spend 6 months on a mini project and decide to switch gears, right? So that is a big part of why I suggest that artists focus on doing mini projects, because that will help you find your path without taking it so personally. If you try to build a huge project, it can be very difficult to switch gears. But if you do a bunch of mini projects and you address the fact that you are going to be switching gears all the time, then it feels so much easier just to like enjoy the new path that it takes, because that's part of the adventure. So assume that as you develop your creative voice, as you find your art style, that you're going to weave and switch and things are going to change, and that is part of the adventure. The huge thing that I had to learn is something that I struggled with a ton. Was not easy for me to accept the fact that these art projects that you do are probably going to be left behind. You're going to switch gears, your art style is going to change. And that is part of it. And don't assume that you're going to build one body of work and then you're going to be done with it. You're going to build different bodies of works, and it's going to change over time. So take that to heart. Remember that you should be willing to switch gears, because that is part of the artistic adventure. Lesson number 3 comes from my mentor, Steven Zapata. And one of the biggest lessons I've taken away from him is that your experience with the drawing is what matters. Now, this is something I was grappling with for years, and then having it be reinforced by this artist that I really admire helped me so much. And one thing that he says is that you should judge the success of your art based on how fun or how enjoyable it was to make, right? So instead of judging how good a piece of art is based on the end product, you should judge it based on how much you actually enjoyed making that piece, because that is ultimately what matters. And this is such an important lesson. It's something I like talk about all the time. My entire channel is mostly just trying to convince people to like find the love in it, find the joy of drawing, because that is what matters. Like at the end of the day, you're probably not going to be a master artist, or you're not going to be a famous artist. That is so unlikely. What is probable is that you can find a way to enjoy your art practice that fulfills you in ways that you probably can't imagine right now. The amount of joy that you can feel in your art practice is so limitless. There's so much joy to be felt, and there's so much exploration to be had. And that only comes from prioritizing your experience while making it. I don't think that you're going to accidentally fall into the joy of drawing unless you pay close attention to it, especially with the amount of tutorials and online artists that tell you just to focus on discipline, focus on the fundamentals, quote unquote. Like those things are important if you're trying to improve technically, but none of those things matter unless you actually love your art practice. And that is the biggest mistake that I made in my 20s. I was so focused on trying to become a good artist, which who knows what that even means, to the point where I completely lost sight of what it is that I care about in the art practice. If you do not know what you care about while making art, it becomes very difficult to feel fulfilled by it, because then you start to lean towards the external factors, right? The external validation. And that is fleeting. External validation is so fleeting. Yes, it's enjoyable to have people connect with your art, but that external connection that comes from the outside is only truly validating if the art is a reflection of who you are deep inside, right? Like if you create something that's very shallow and you don't care about it, when people connect to it, it's not fulfilling, because it's just a mask, right? It's just this fake thing that you don't care about. But if you make art that you truly care about and you feel like this is me, this is who I am, then when people connect to it, it's very fulfilling because you feel seen, you feel understood. That is how I feel now when people see my work and enjoy it. It hits me really hard because I'm like, from my experience, it feels like you're seeing me. You're not just liking my art, you're liking who I am as a person, because this is a big part of who I am. And you only really get there by figuring out what it is that you love about the art practice and what it is that matters to you when you make art. And that's not an easy thing to figure out, but you can only figure it out by actually putting it as a high priority. If you put everything else as a higher priority, it's going to be very difficult to figure out what it is that matters to you. At the core, the real foundation of art is what matters. Like what is it that you're trying to express? What is it that you care about? Because there's infinite options, right? Like there's so much we can express through art. There's no part of life that you can express through your art. So you kind of have to choose, right? And you don't have to choose one thing and stick to it forever. You do mini projects and you figure out, wait, do I care about this? What kind of message do I want to send now? Your life experiences will change, so the things that you want to express will change. But you want to prioritize what matters to you and develop your love for the art practice so that it feels fulfilling. It should feel good to draw. Like, why else do this? Why bother doing this if it doesn't feel good? Most of us will not get external approval for our art. You're most likely not really going to make a lot of money off it. You might make some money off it, but the probability that you're going to make a bunch of money off it is low. So ultimately, the main thing that we should get from it is fulfillment and love and joy and expression and catharsis. Like those are the things that matter. Those are the things that truly matter in the art practice. And I think we're really losing sight of it because it's a hard thing to teach. It's hard to teach people to like find the things that they love. And it's something that I've been working on, right? In my courses, if you've taken any of them, especially the latest one, it's really focused on trying to help people like find the thing that matters to them. And that's not an easy thing, right? Like it's taken me years to figure out how to like nudge people towards that, because it's not an easy thing to figure out, even for myself. It's something I struggle with. But we want to start prioritizing our experience of the art practice. Figure out what it is that we love about it. Figure out what is it that matters, right? What kind of messaging matters in our art? What kind of subject matter makes us feel fulfilled and excited about it? What are we curious about? Like what is the latest thing that really sparked your curiosity? Can you bring that into your art practice? Can you grab something external, put it into your art practice, right? Did you have a beautiful experience with a friend recently that you want to put into the art practice, like into a recent piece? Maybe you want to do 3 drawings on the last year that you had, right? For a lot of us, the last 4 years was very transformative. Many things happened in the world. Maybe we do a series about the changes that have happened, and putting that into the art makes it so much more enjoyable, makes it more exciting to draw. Is that the path that you should take? Or maybe it's just, hey, maybe I just want to improve my anatomical drawings, but I'm going to build a project that makes it a little bit more fun, makes it a little bit more exciting. I'm going to explore watercolor because I haven't done that before, but I always wanted to. Or maybe there's a color palette that I'm curious about. Maybe I should pull that into it. You want to ask yourself these questions and figure out how you strategically increase the joy that you get from your art practice. Really sit down, spend the time to figure that out. It's so valuable, and it will make it so much easier to improve. The more you fall in love with your art practice, the easier it will be to improve it. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that the more someone falls in love with the craft, the easier it is to improve at it, because you're just going to spend more time, you're going to enjoy it more, and that it will become easier and easier, right? Your studies do not have to be painful. Studies can be super enjoyable if you just design projects around them and like find ways to make it fulfilling. Trust me, it's possible. I was someone who was miserable in my artistic vision. I had an artistic vision, but as I was chasing it, I was miserable in my 20s. Honestly, I wasted so many years. Do not make this mistake. Trust me, you can enjoy the entire thing. The entire thing can be enjoyable, but you have to be deliberate about it. And it's not easy. It will take time, but it is possible. And knowing that it's possible, make it a priority. Just make it a priority. Trust me, you will thank me later. It'll make it so much easier. So that's lesson from Steven Zapata, the king, the GOAT. This next lesson is also from Steven, and that is that anything is available in your art practice. Anything is available. Any discovery is available. Anything, just open your mind to it. There's so much that's available through drawing and through painting. So don't make it small. Don't make your art small. This is something that he said many times in our mentorship, and it helped me a ton. It made me realize that over time I had actually made my art small. Like the experience of art I'd made smaller and smaller and really taken away some of the magic of drawing. Drawing and making art can be truly magical. You can discover so much about yourself and so much about just your experience as a human being. So like, don't make it small. If you make it small, you'll rob yourself of so many of the beautiful experiences that are available here and now in the art practice. And it doesn't matter what level of skill you're at. If you're thinking that your art practice has to be small because you're a beginner artist, then you're missing the point. The whole point of this is to feel fulfilled, to feel joy, to discover things about yourself. And being good technically isn't the main thing, right? That's secondary. The main thing is the discovery, the experience that you can have through the art. And there's a temptation to make it smaller because that makes it a little bit less intimidating. Like it makes it a little bit easier, but it also robs us of the inspiration that's possible, right? Think about how you feel when you look at art. Think about the last art piece that you looked at, you were like, oh my God, that's beautiful. Really think about the experience of that, like that communication, that connection that you have with that artist. Think about your favorite artist. Go look at their work right now. Open another tab, look at their work, and just really pay attention to the experience that you're having with that art. Think about all of the things that you feel, like really feel it in your body. That's the power that art has. So why are you making your art practice small? Like, don't make it small. Let it be big. There's so much to be had there. There's so much that you can connect to and experience. And for me, a big part of that is feeling seen. Like that is a little bit external, right? But the idea that I can put myself on paper, that I can put my experience into an image and like have people connect to it, to me that's tremendously beautiful. I love the idea that is possible, that is available. That is mind-blowing to me. It's mind-blowing to me almost every day when I get to look at the amount of people that connect to my art. When people leave comments about my art, it makes me feel really good because I'm like, you're connecting to this thing that I'm connected to, and we're having this like dance where, you know, we're doing this little tango where I create this piece and then you interact with it and you put your experience into it and you project some of your experiences into it, and then it resonates with you, and then you leave a comment and then like back and forth, and then you take some of my work and pull that into inspiration for your own work, and then I'm doing that same dance with other artists, and like that, like mixing, this network effect of just like sharing beautiful art with each other is just amazing. And so how can you imagine that art is small? Like, how did I convince myself that art was small? Like, why did I make my art practice small? And I do this professionally. Even for me, I forget that art can be anything and that what's available in the art practice is magnificent. And I'm not saying that you have to share your work to get that benefit. What you get out of your art is unique to you. But just think about that as one example of the power of making art. This little dance, even art style wise, your art style is probably a combination of all the artists that you love. And it is a dance, like it's like this spiritual dance that we're having. And there's like, the way I like to think of it is that there's this greater God, almost like there's the muse, and we're all serving it. And in that service that we all get to like connect in a way that is this beautiful experience. And that is the way that my mind can grapple with how amazing making art actually is. And you actually have to figure out what works for you. For some of you, that might sound a little bit too spiritual. Maybe you're like, whoa, let's not talk about God, right? Like for some people, that is like a huge turnoff. But ask yourself, how do you make your art practice bigger? How do you really connect with the power that it has for you? And that might just be, I have fun making art. That can be it. But having fun is fun. Having fun small. Is being playful small? No, it's huge. It's so human to be playful and have fun, right? Or maybe it helps you process grief. Do you think that's small? Processing grief? No, it's not small. That's huge. That's the fact that you have that available to you is amazing. So do not make your art practice small. I could harp on this forever because there's so much there. But really try to think about it. How do you make your art practice more? How do you expand your vision for what the art practice can offer you, especially like emotionally in terms of like the process and like what it means, what is the message that it has, like what does it say about you? Explore these ideas and try to be excited about it. Just try, trust me, it's a fun exercise. It might be a little bit intimidating sometimes because it is intimidating to me sometimes, but there is inspiration to be had there if you're willing to open your eyes to it. This next lesson also comes from another pencil artist. We have Miles Johnson. Look at this work. Absolutely insane. He just put out an art book that is absolutely beautiful. One of the big lessons that I've learned from Miles is actually a marketing lesson. One thing that Miles pointed out is that if you're putting work out online, you're competing with all kinds of attention. So one of the questions that he asked himself was, how do I make an image that's actually worth looking at? Now, obviously this doesn't apply to you if you're a hobbyist who wants to keep your work off social media, but it is an interesting thing to ponder. How do you make images that are actually worth the time? Because you are competing across the board. So one thing that he mentioned in a podcast many years ago is that he tries to make images that can compete with every type of media online. So not just the best art that he can make, but also assume that you're like competing for people's attention in terms of like photography, videos, movies. And that is why he started spending more and more time rendering out these beautiful concepts, because he realized that if I want to make art that's worth people's time, I need to invest this type of time into it. And this question, obviously this is like a marketing angle, but you can also imagine it in terms of your own personal experience. If you're making art for yourself that is truly beautiful, why rush through it? So Miles will spend an entire month on a single small drawing. And that is why he has built up the audience that he has built up, because he's willing to make that kind of commitment to making something beautiful for people to experience. Now you can be the audience of one. When you make art for yourself, be the audience of one and try to put that kind of effort into it and see what happens. Now there's a lot of personal preference here. Obviously, not everyone wants to spend that kind of time. I'm not that type of artist. I personally prefer doing multiple drawings because that's just the way my brain works. But exploring this idea allowed me to figure out what the appropriate amount of time for me personally. Now ask yourself, next time you do a drawing, do I really want to do a fast drawing, or do I want to spend some time with it and really think about the concept, spend time with the idea so that I actually do a drawing that matters? Really try to think about that. And that's something that I've been doing more of lately, where I spend more time concepting out, like, what is the message? What is the idea? The latest course is all about that. It's just like trying to be very deliberate about the message that you're trying to put into your project. So next time you start a mini project, try to figure out what is an idea worth exploring. For me personally, right? It can be for you. I think it should be for you first. I imagine that Miles only explores ideas that he finds interesting. Because if you listen to him talk on any interview or any podcast, it does seem like he really loves exploring these ideas. So he starts with his own love for it first. And that means that you have to be way more deliberate about what it is that you're exploring. Like you have to be way more intentional about the piece that you're actually spending time on. If you only do quick sketches, it's very easy to assume that the idea isn't that valuable. But if you're going to spend the next month on a single drawing, you're definitely going to take time to do rough drawings and figure it out, because you want that time to be worth it. You want the sacrifice you're about to make to be completely worth it. And that's a huge lesson I learned from Miles. It's one that I'm actually pondering now as well. Like, in writing out these lessons, I was really thinking about it. I was like, man, I need to spend more time with that. I need to ponder that idea because I do think it's immensely valuable. And it's also something like, if you are hoping to become a professional artist, can be helpful. But I do think that ultimately it's about your experience as well, because you want to make art that you can feel proud of. And therefore that maybe you should invest more time into it so that you can feel proud of it. So that when you look at it, you can see, here's all this time that I spent on it and I feel proud of it. I spent time making sure that this reflects who I am, and spending that amount of time makes me so much more proud. So that's another lesson. Try to spend time with your work. Really pay attention to the ideas that you invest time into. The next mini project that you make, really be intentional with the messaging and the concepts within it. Lesson number 6 comes from Pete Morbacher, who was the creator of Angelarium, and that is that art skills and business skills are separate. So if you're trying to make money off your art, you have to learn business skills. It's not a given that if you just become a great artist that you'll be able to make money. Now, this is something that many of you might have noticed by now, is that a lot of the artists who make money online aren't necessarily the best artists, but they are artists who tend to have business skills. But at the same time, one important thing that Pete mentions is that making great art can be a force multiplier to your business, right? So obviously, if you make great art, it's easier to market your work because more people will resonate with it and that will work in your favor. But ultimately, if you're trying to make money off your art practice, then you got to learn business skills, and that is a very separate skill from just making great art. There are plenty of great artists that I see online that I notice could make so much more money if they just design their business differently. There's so many artists who have big followings online who just leave money on the table because they haven't explored the different business skills that are available. Now, my channel is mostly focused on hobbyists, but I do think it's important to mention that if you are interested in learning the business side of art, that is a separate skill, and that if you are someone who is interested in that you need to explore that separately from just making great art. There are plenty of artists who make tons of money off their art that you might not consider great artists, but they're so good at the business side, they're so good at the marketing side that they connect with people and they have a strong brand and they know how to monetize their work. I do think that one of the big blessings of the modern age and for creatives that are of this generation is that we have these tools available to us that are very recent. My entire business is based off selling educational material, selling original work, and having an audience online. And all of that only is available now, right? Like if I was an artist 20 years ago, that would be very hard to do. But now those tools are so available to us. So it's so much easier to build a business around creativity. And I do want to mention that because it is something that I'm very passionate about. And I don't teach a lot of it because I do think that the hobby side of art is more pure. And I do think that for most people, trying to make money off your art can become treacherous. I think it can make it very complicated because ultimately you do want to start with your personal voice first. It has to be for you first. That's the only way it'll be sustainable. But I also do want to mention that there are these marketing skills that you can learn. There are these business skills that you can learn that will make it easier to make money off your art. And if you are someone who's hoping to make money off your art in the future, remember that just making better art and just improving your fundamentals, quote unquote, won't automatically get you there. It's not how that works. Those are very separate skills. Marketing skills and art skills are very different, which also means that when you look up to artists online, be mindful of how often you put value on follower counts. Be very mindful of likes online and who you follow. There's plenty of artists online who have big followings because they're good at the marketing. But that doesn't mean that they're good artists necessarily, or that they're good teachers. It's something that you have to be very, very careful of. And obviously there's a bit of judgment there. You have to use your own mind there, but be very careful of who you follow. So do you truly want to be like this artist, like in terms of their art, or are they just very charming? Do they just do very good reels, right? Like those are questions that you want to grapple with. Is something that I have to pay close attention to. I try to be very selective about who I listen to. A big part of why I paid Steven Zapata to be a mentor of mine was because I valued the art that he makes. A lot of his messaging makes sense to me. It resonates with my heart. And it's not just because he's a popular artist. It's because I truly value the art that he makes and the messaging that he has. So be mindful of that. Try not to be too easily convinced by just good marketing. Try to be mindful of how easy it is to be convinced that someone is a great artist just because they have a good follower count or high likes. Just be mindful of that. I'm not saying that you should just not value that, but I do think that you want to be mindful of it, especially as a student. Just because someone has a lot of followers doesn't mean that they're a good teacher. Be mindful of that. But if you are interested in learning how to make money off your art, make sure to learn business skills as well as art skills, because those are two separate skills. So that's lesson number 6. Lesson number 7 comes from the boy 1000, and that is the power of confidence. One thing that I love about 1000 is that he really leaned into his artistic voice. He really leaned into these specific color palettes and his way of working, and that paid off big time for him in terms of becoming a big creator online. But I just love that fact that if you have the confidence to lean into who you are, that can be so powerful. He connects with so many people because he's leaned into this one style. If you are someone who knows his work, if you see any of his pieces, you're like, that's a 1000 piece. immediately you're like, that's a 1000 piece. I have 1000 hoodies that I wear all the time, and if someone knows 1000's work, they're like, yep, that's a 1000 piece. That I know that art style. And that's the power of confidence. And I love that that's possible and that that's available in art practices, that if you lean into who you are, people will know it. People will just instinctively know it. And I remember one time I got in an elevator with a friend and she was looking at my hoodie and she's like, why do I know this art style? Like, why does that look so familiar? And I'm like, 1000. And she's like, yes, 1000. Like, the fact that she had never seen this hoodie before, she had never seen any of those specific pieces on that hoodie, but she was like, wait, this resonates with me. I know this. I know there's like almost like a smell to it. There's like a flavor to it. And you're like, ah, yes, it's familiar. You know, that it's almost like when you get in an elevator and it smells like pizza and you're like, pizza. It's that power is available in art if you have the confidence to lean into who you are and your art style. And it's something that I love. I just love that. That makes me so happy that that is possible. And there's many artists like that, right? Where you see their piece and before you read who it is by, you're like, I know whose piece that is. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that awesome? I think that is so cool. And for many of you, you might be like, well, I don't have a distinct art style. And to that, I say you're lying. You might not notice your own art style because I don't notice my art style most of the time. Trust me, you have an art style. And if you want more clarity around your art style, check out my new course where I really focus on the artist roadmap in terms of figuring out your art style, building out like a creative voice blueprint where we talk about like what matters to you, who are you as a person, like exploring some of those ideas, asking yourself reflective questions. And then we also build a mini project outline where we try to do a mini project, focus on finishing a mini project, and then we move around. So a lot of the things I talked about in this video, we go through in that course because that course is specifically designed to focus on the things that would have been tremendously valuable to me when I was a younger artist. I wasted so many years in my 20s. And I'm trying to build a course that just like solves all of those problems. It makes it so much easier for people to like figure out who they are, what matters to them, building a regular drawing habit and like finding out your creative voice and like doing some of the reflection. And then we also grapple with perfectionism because I know perfectionism is one of the biggest things that holds us back. The idea of doing a mini project might be really scary to you because perfectionism is like has this grips on you and you just like don't know how to get out of it. I have a free lesson that's linked below there where I talk about perfectionism, which is from that course. Check that video out. And if you want to join me, go check out that course. I do think it'll be tremendously valuable. I'm also looking for feedback. So if you are someone who does the course, feel free to email me because I do want to improve on it. It's something that I want to work on. I want to help you guys because I want people not to waste the time that I wasted, right? I want to build something that will help people not waste the time that I wasted. I don't want people to suffer the same way that I did. I suffered so unnecessarily through my 20s. And I do think that this course and this format of figuring out your voice, your creative voice can help you save you so many years of pain. It can make it so much easier. There's still a struggle involved. It still will take you time. Assume that the path is weaving and shifting, right? Like don't expect the path to be linear because it's not. I'm not selling you that. But by being intentional about each mini project, will make it way faster to figure out what it is that matters to you and where it is that you should head with your creativity. So if you are interested in that, check the links below and then also check out another video on my channel. See you guys in the next lesson. Bye. Love ya. Yay.